Pretension. Let me tell you, this is definitely one of my favorites of season 5 so far, but not for the reason that it usually is. Most of the time my favorites are kind of determined by things that are happening in the love square. However, with Pretension, it's actually one of my favorites because of something that doesn't even have to do with the love square like at all. And although I really do like this episode, I don't think that it is like high up on my favorites. I don't even think it's in my top 5. It's probably like the 6th or 7th favorite episode for me, mainly because I feel as though this episode needed to be longer. I think it was one of those episodes where they just tried to fit way too much into one episode, and so everything feels like very rushed. If it were up to me, I would have had this episode, Pretension, be about Felix and Kagami and Tomo and them trying to get the Peacock Miraculous back and just all of that, and then the episode after it would have been about Marinette going to talk to Gabriel. But other than that, there isn't really anything that I didn't like about this episode. But anyway, finally going into the things that actually happened within the episode, it starts off with Adrien and Kagami going to their fencing lesson, and Adrien is on the phone with Marinette. This is when we learn that they've actually been sneaking around and finding little moments to spend together, which is romantic in a sense, but also mainly really just sad. It just sucks that they even have to hide anything, and that's exactly what Marinette was saying a little bit later in the episode. It's totally unfair, and so she decides that it's time to talk to his father and just kind of like explain everything, and so she gets in the car with Adrien and they go to his house. But I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself because that happens just a little bit later on in the episode. So going back to when they first get to the school, we see Argo standing on the roof of the school watching Adrien and Kagami, and had I not believed that Felix was just kind of like looking out for Felix and Kagami, I would have found this extremely creepy. Now going to Gabriel, Natalie is helping him use the Kwames to try to take away the cataclysm because, as Gabriel said, he just needs more time to seize Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous. But obviously it didn't work, thank goodness. I just really want to see Gabriel gone, and that cataclysm is the thing that's reassuring me that he will be gone one day. So thank the Lord for that cataclysm. Anyway, it didn't work because the Kwames confirmed that it isn't possible to get rid of a cataclysm. Once you've been touched by it, your fate is kind of set. Just like how it would be if you used a broken Miraculous. No matter what you do, you're bound to die at some point or another. There's no way to change it unless you make a wish, which is obviously never a good option, especially considering the fact that there is a balance in the universe, and so that means that someone would have to die in your place. But that's kind of just a topic for another video. Anyway, yeah, so like I said, Gabriel's talking about how he needs more time to get Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous so he can save Emily, himself, and Natalie, and that's when Tomo comes in, and to be honest, I have no idea what she's saying. I mean, I do. I just don't really know what she means by what she said. She talks about how their, as she said, vision of the future is bigger than getting his wife back and him saving Natalie and him. She also said that him and her are connected, just like how Kagami and Adrien are, and I just, what? It doesn't make any sense to me, I don't know. But the main reason that I'm talking about this scene is because he says something about getting the Peacock Miraculous back. To be honest, I really don't understand why they would want to have it other than to just have all the Miraculous and have ultimate power, but I really don't think that that's the case. I think they, or more specifically Tomo, wanted something out of it. I'm just not really sure what. And although I don't know why they want it now, I think it may end up coming up later on in the season or just later in the show, so I thought I should mention it. But finally, going back to Adrien, like I said before, they go to Adrien's house to talk to Gabriel. And there is nothing that I hate more than the entirety of the scene. Him acting like this really nice and amazing dad, but then controlling Adrien to leave Marinette all by herself. It's terrible. Not to mention Adrien's face when he got to his room. He looked absolutely terrified. I think it was mainly because he knew he needed to go help, but for some reason he couldn't. I mean, I would be scared too. Like, just imagine being in his place, knowing you need to do something and wanting to do it, but for some reason not being able to physically do it, and also having no clue why you can't. No one should ever have to go through that. I can totally see why Felix has always been so persistent in saving him and would literally destroy anything in order to do it. And speaking of Gabriel's control, this scene was the worst because it's basically Gabriel taunting Marinette with the fact that he has control over Adrien and can make him do whatever he pleases. That he can make it so they'll never be together because of that control. And just like the way he talks about it shows that he's proud of it. He has no remorse for any pain his actions have caused Adrien, and I'm sorry, but what? Like, for example, his face when he told Adrien that he'd be going to London next year at the end of the episode. He was so proud of it, and for why? Causing your son pain brings you joy? He's a psychopath, oh my gosh. Not to mention, this crusty, dusty old man is so full of himself, it makes me actually sick. He was insulting Marinette's designs and just flat out told her that she wouldn't be anything without him. Not to mention, he was literally implying that anyone who wore his designs wouldn't be anything if it weren't for him. Huh? Like, no. I'm pretty sure everyone's life would be a whole heck of a lot better if you weren't in it. All you've ever done is just destroy everything. Like, it's literally your own fault that your wife's dead and you have the audacity to think so highly of yourself. He's like the definition of a narcissist and a child. He's a literal child. That's all he is, was, and will ever be. I'm so proud of Marinette for doing what she did because I know it took a lot of courage. Gabriel told her that she would never have Adrien. He wouldn't allow it whether she took the pancake and the career he'd give her or didn't, and then proceeds to put her down in like so many different ways, and yet she didn't let that get to her head. Instead, she just ran into Adrien's room and promised that she'd never abandon him. That honestly has to be one of the sweetest Adriennette scenes ever. And also with what she said to Gabriel, from what I can tell, Mari is the kind of person that needs a lot of reassurance. Personally, I think that her love language is words of affirmation, and so having someone say what Gabriel said can be very damaging. It could really ruin your self-esteem and self-worth, so the fact that she didn't even let that get to her head either, and instead just flat out tore him to shreds instead, makes me really proud. Now, moving on to literally my favorite part of the episode, Felix and Kagami. She's in the car with her mom telling her that she doesn't want her and Adrien to be considered as a couple because of Adriennette and her respect for them. When Felix shows up on the top of the car and listens into what they're saying, and what he hears is Tomo telling Kagami that she is a slave to her own emotions, which in my opinion is kind of Tomo's way of saying that her feelings aren't valid, and also basically just tells her that she isn't the one who can dictate her life and behavior. And obviously, Felix really does not like that, as he says no one should have to endure such words. And so he kidnaps her. Argos ends up accidentally leaving behind a feather, and so Tomo realizes that it was Felix that caused all of this, and because of that she has Gabriel akumatize her so that way they could get the Peacock Miraculous back, which now brings me to my favorite scene in the whole entire episode. Felix brings her to the top of the Eiffel Tower and puts her on the couch, where she then gets up and tries to hit him with a chair. And that, my friends, is exactly why I love Kagami so much. But before she actually gets the chance to hit him, he explains that he's not her enemy and that he just wanted to talk to her. Ever since he saw her and found out that they were a lot alike, he hasn't been able to stop thinking about her, so he's been following her around as a way to get to know her more and to protect her from her mom. Was adorable. Oh, and also, so was Kagami's face when he said that, and also when he said, "I'm the one who's come to save you." That was literally so cute. I can't, I'm dying. She fell in love with him right then and there, I swear. I know a lot of people don't like the ship, but I think that they and this scene is actually really cute. However, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Felix and Kagami in this video because I'm planning on making a whole video about them and just like the ship in general. But I do want to mention that in my ships video, I said that I wasn't really sure how I felt about them because I didn't know a whole lot about them. However, now that I've seen them, I can definitely say that I like them a whole lot more. They could honestly be up there in my top ships, not gonna lie. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is Felix mentioning his father. Kagami said, "My mother pretends to come to my rescue, then shoots arrows at me," and in return Felix says, "And you've never met my father, he was 1,000 times worse." Which I feel like we as a fandom have always felt that Colt wasn't a good person and have always theorized that he controlled Felix up until he died. So him saying that, and also him saying,
"Quando alguém traz ser vivo para esse mundo, acaba tendo responsabilidade com ele, o dever de proteger ele, ter amor por ele e ajudar a descobrir o sentido da existência dele. E você impedir isso é monstruoso."
I feel like really backs up that whole theory. It also makes it seem as though Felix's dad might have been just like Gabriel in the sense of controlling. The scene we saw earlier of Gabriel making Adrien leave and Adrien being scared because of it was probably the same kind of thing that Felix had been going through his whole entire life, except his was probably to a greater extent, considering the fact that Felix kind of sees anyone he doesn't know at all or doesn't really trust as a monster who's out to get him. To me, it kind of seems like there's just a lot of trauma there, and I think he probably got that from his dad. Honestly, can't wait to learn more about Felix and where he came from and just like his whole story as a sentimonster, because it seems as though he's been through a heck of a lot. Also, while we're on the topic of Felix, I honestly believe that he's gonna make such a good hero because he's very good at coming up with plans, just like Ladybug is. I think that they could honestly make a really good duo. And I also think that them letting him keep keep the miraculous, and potentially making him a part of the superhero group when they get all the miraculous back is a really good idea. It could probably help him in so many ways, make him start doing good things with good intentions instead of bad things with good intentions. I think being around a lot of good people and just being a part of a group in general could be really beneficial for him. He could really become the good person that we all really know he is. Oh, and lastly, let me tell you, Dusu is in extremely good hands. Kogami asks him, since he has the Peacock Miraculous, why he wouldn't just create a Sentimonster to get them out of there, and in return he says, first of all, don't call them that. And then he goes on to explain that he refuses to bring a living being into this world just to manipulate, control, and abuse them, and then destroy them after. Which, like, up until season 5, I honestly didn't really think a whole lot about that, but now after season 5, and especially after Felix said that, I totally agree. It's terrible, and as Felix said, monstrous, to create something just to control it and then destroy it after. The idea of the Peacock Miraculous is good. You can create a being to help fight evil. However, having control over a being and having the capability to destroy it the second you don't want it or need it anymore is horrible. And I'm glad that he feels that way. It means it's a lot less likely that he would ever abuse the power of the miraculous and the things that he creates with it, like Gabriel did, and Tomo probably would have had she gotten a hold of it. Dusu will definitely be free in the hands of Felix, which is good because they deserve it. Dusu is such a cute and sweet Kwami. I know I mentioned this earlier, but Felix is then talking about how it is monstrous to deprive someone of protection, love, and just the ability to discover who they are and why they're here. And then Kogami says in return, are you talking about yourself? Which I can't really tell if she was implying that he was a senti or not. It kind of seemed as though she was, but it never says directly, so I don't know. However, I'm just glad that Felix is telling someone about everything. I think he really needed it, and so did she, because, well, she's kind of in the same situation that he was in, and it's good for her to be aware of it and even get out of it. Which brings me to the end of the episode and the last thing that I wanted to talk about. I think Tomo had Kogami's ring, or more specifically the family crest, for a while, like probably from when she was born up until right before she first came onto the show. And the reason she gave it to her in the first place was because she believed that Kogami was now perfect and didn't need to be controlled to be so anymore, as she mentioned in Protection.
To control your son, Gabriel.
And you, your daughter.
My daughter is so perfect, she doesn't need me to control her.
So now that Felix told her the things she did, she decided to stand up to her mom because she should be the one to decide what she does with her life and what she makes of it. But obviously, all Tomo did was take back her ring. But thank goodness for Felix because he switched the rings, so the one given to her mom wasn't the real one, and Kogami is now still free. Which is exactly why I love Felix. I'm very proud of him too. He's finally getting the chance to do what he's always wanted to do from the beginning, save the sentis from their parents.